There are three UFC belts on the line this weekend. This is episode 122 of The Next Best Bet. I'm Jake Higgins with Brett Levy, as always. We'll get into our UFC a little bit later into the episode. Let's talk about how we did last episode first, Brett. My Washington State play, that game got canceled right before it started. And my Jazz pick of the pod, I mean, it was supposed to be the best team in the league against the spread, against the fourth worst team, but still, Zion and the Pelicans got that done and won outright. But you sacrificed the Levy lock for something that we can both relish in a little bit, right?
Yeah, I just said UNC's got to win. No way. I knew what I was doing, Higgins. I knew Syracuse on a little 2-game win streak here. We're back on the bubble. Am I the motivating factor? Do I have that kind of power? Yes.
The Next Best Bet have that kind of power? Also, yes. You went 1-2 though. I went 1-3-1. So we're gonna have a bounce back week. We got humbled a little bit. I'm still over. I'm in the positive for my units on the year. You're still catching up at 7 units under. Let's get into our beginners boulevard though, Brett, because there's gonna be a consensus that we're gonna talk about a little later in this episode. But the general agreement about something, I mean, the sports books, the fans, every bettor, everyone's basically agreeing this is how this bet's gonna go, and you'll typically see it reflected in the odds. It's gonna be very heavy against you, but you know you're gonna win.
Oh, I mean, there's no guarantees in life, Higgins. Sometimes it's good to, fade the public, or everyone's saying one thing's gonna happen. It's always when the 5 announcers on the Monday Night Football game pick the same team. No one likes to see that.
Any given Sunday, I mean, there's an entire movie based off it. I mean, underdogs are always a classic, and who knows, maybe there's some opportunities for some underdogs in this episode. We'll get through the NBA really quickly, though, here, Brett, because we only have one line out on Wednesday night, and there's 9 games on Thursday. So the Bucks Grizzlies, Bucks are 5.5-point favorites. I didn't really find myself in love with either side of this game. Neither with the over/under at 234.5. There's a couple of the games on Monday night that I'll be looking at, but I don't think it's that one. How about you?
Yeah, I'm not really very interested in this one from a betting perspective. Could be very entertaining to watch. Giannis and John Morant, 2 of the more fun players to watch in this league. So could be entertaining on the court, Higgins, but that spread, I would lean Memphis, but I don't love it, so I'm not betting on it.
Well, and also, we were talking before the show, the All-Star Game's coming up pretty soon, so should we be worried about some rest with some of these bets?
Yeah, I don't, it could be rest or, injury management. Like maybe some of these guys are banged up and you can get these guys a little bit of a longer break. So we sit
It
them an
was a
extra
short off
game.
season.
Yeah, exactly. So, LeBron missed his first game of the year the other night. Kawhi was a later scratch in the evening for some people that maybe put together like multi-game NBA parlays or play daily fantasy and had to submit some things a little earlier. Kawhi was a late scratch the other night as well. So we are seeing guys sit, Higgins, but I'm not 100% sure why the lines were not out in time for our recording for this episode. We haven't had this issue happen too many times, but that's probably one of the factors. They don't want to get burned from a Kawhi Leonard being out, and maybe that's a 2-point shift.
It could be at least a 2-point shift potentially. Let's jump into some games where we know players are going to be playing, though. They matter greatly, and that's in college basketball as things are heating up. It's March, so has March Madness officially begun? The tournament hasn't, but has the madness begun?
Maybe the madness has begun. We'll start to see some of these lower level tournaments popping up throughout the weekend here, and some of the bigger ones will start next week, Higgins. So I'm excited for the conference tournaments. I'm excited for March Madness and looking forward to a really good Thursday night, actually. Starting off with Michigan State at Michigan. That should be a great one.
It's going to be a fantastic one. It's the first of a back to back to end the regular season for these two. Not back to back nights, but back to back games facing the same opponent. This game's at Michigan. The next game's at Michigan State. And I think because of that reason, especially, I'm going to be on Michigan minus 12 here. Let's say, let's take a look at the Big Ten. Michigan is 15-5 against the spread this season. That's number one in the Big Ten. Michigan State is 8-16 against the spread this season. That is dead last in the Big Ten. So just based off of that, based off of the fact that Michigan's at home, Juwan Howard has done a fantastic job with this group of guys. I think minus 12 is going to be coverable in the first game, and then who knows what we see for the second game that's going to be in Michigan State.
Yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about this one, Higgins. Michigan in their last game get blown out by Illinois, so you think comeback spot, but Tom Izzo is synonymous with the month of March, and that calendar has turned, Higgins. So I'd have to see Izzo lose in March before I'm betting against him. So this is going to be a little bit of a wait and see. I'm actually kind of hoping Michigan State covers this one, and maybe I get Michigan on an even lower line than just like shifting home court would do, because Michigan's the better team here, no doubt about it. Higgins, to your point, Michigan's been fantastic all season. They'll be a 1 seed in the tournament. I really have a tough time picking teams to beat them, but to cover a double-digit spread in a rivalry game, I could definitely write that narrative. So that's why I'm staying away.
You are making a great point for me potentially falling for the trap and you getting the cleanup in the next game. I feel confident in that, though. Michigan, the best in the Big Ten covering, Michigan State, the worst. I'm gonna follow the numbers here. I'm gonna follow the numbers. I'm gonna be doing that throughout the night. It's a little bit of a theme with some of my picks tonight, including with the next pick that I have, which is an SEC matchup versus an American matchup. Vanderbilt at Cincinnati. I'm taking Vandy plus 6.5.
Yeah.
Partly, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say this is kind of a surprise matchup when I saw it on the board, Higgins. You don't really see an out of conference matchup in early March, so it caught me by surprise.
You really don't, and it's interesting because Cincinnati at home, and you'll be the first to say I really loved Cincinnati in college football, didn't I?
Yeah, yes, you were a big fan.
But doesn't translate over to basketball apparently because Cincinnati against the spread this year is awful. They're 5-13, bottom of the American Conference. Meanwhile, Vanderbilt against the spread has actually done fantastic. They're second in the SEC, 10, 6, and 5 against the spread. So they at least push five times in their 21 games, but there's no push option here at plus 6.5. Maybe wait till it gets to 7 because that looks like where it's heading. But I'm gonna take with the hook. I'm gonna take them for the win.
All right, go Commodores, go Vandy. I'm on Arizona State at Colorado, Higgins. The spread in this one, Colorado's 11-point favorites. The over/under is 147. I like Colorado minus 11 in this one, Higgins. Again, Arizona State has been terrible against the spread this year. Really one of the disappointing teams in college basketball this year. And Colorado's kind of caught some people by surprise. Um, People weren't familiar with their point guard, McKinley. He's a great player, true impact player. And I think he and Colorado get this done on. I didn't check it. I probably should have checked it before the podcast, but I assume, this is a late home game. It's got to be senior night. Like, this could be his last home game. They want to go out with a bang, Higgins, for this kid. They don't want to go out with a whimper.
Yeah, I mean, late in the regular season at altitude. I find that already with Arizona State at a disadvantage. They've been terrible against the spread all season. Colorado's third in the Pac-12 against the spread at 15-11. It's a 6 p.m. Pacific time game, so 9 Eastern. Late for you, around dinner time for us, getting off work for us over here on the West Coast.
Yeah, and it's in Colorado, so it'll be 7 local. So, normal time, I guess, for a tip off in Colorado. But yeah, I just like the Buffaloes -11. Again, I'm betting on kind of what you said, the numbers here. ASU is not great against the spread. Going to altitude, I like the Colorado team. They're playing well. They play good together. So the 11 points, it does open a backdoor opportunity for Arizona State. Anytime you're in living in double digits with the spread, it always opens a backdoor. But we'll see what happens, Higgins. I like that -11.
And there's a few other top 25 games on Monday night, Brett, but the spreads are all really big. So I picked one game that was a double digit favorite already. And there were a few other teams that I like, but they're 17.5 Kansas. I don't know if I'm confident enough to pull that. 16.5 Iowa. I don't know if I could do that either. I mean, some of these are just a little too big for me that maybe we'll see what it is Monday during the day, but not right now.
Well, our moneyline magic, Higgins, is going to feature West Virginia, and they're 13.5 point favorites against TCU. I'm about to tell you why it may be a bounce back spot here because this Baylor game was a thriller, Higgins.
Oh, yeah? Well, Baylor would lead 35-31 at halftime, but when we pick this one up with 3:12 remaining in the second half, it would be Baylor ball coming out of the timeout, and Matthew Meyer would convert the layup and make the score 71 Baylor, 72 West Virginia.
Yeah, this game was great down the stretch, like I said. Here, as Matthew McBride would hit 2 free throws, he would push the lead to 3, but Matthew Mayer would respond with another 3 to tie the game. But the scoring didn't stop there, Higgins. McNeil would hit a jumper to push the lead to 2, 76-74. But Matthew Mayer, another 3 for Baylor, 77-76 Baylor. Back and forth, the game continues as Taz Sherman gets a bucket for West Virginia to push their lead to 1. But then Jared Butler responds with a layup with about a minute left to put Baylor up 1. He would actually get fouled, Higgins, and miss the free throw, and West Virginia would get to shoot the free throw following a missed shot. It was kind of a missed shot. West Virginia got the ball immediately, foul situation. West Virginia would go back up 1.
Yeah, it is a 17-point scoring frenzy between the two teams in a minute 30, Brett. Absolutely insane offense by both sides.
Yeah, it was fun to watch. But then the game would get a little sloppy over the next minute here, Higgins. Until about 15 seconds left, Mark Vital would miss a layup, and Baylor would again get fouled on would foul on the missed shot. Excuse me. Miles McBride would go to the line for West Virginia. He would actually miss the first, make the second. So now that West Virginia lead, that was 1 point about a minute ago. Now it's a 2 point lead. So Baylor ball coming out of the timeout. This is the play of the night, really, for Baylor here, Higgins. They get their best player on an ISO on the wing. He makes a great drive, takes a strong take to the basket, and actually goes right into the defender's chest, makes the layup. So the contest really doesn't come into play, Higgins, and ties up the game at 81. We're going to overtime.
Yeah, this second half was absolutely maniacal. 96 points scored between these two teams. I'm looking at the game flow right now. I mean, there's barely a break early on in the second half where Baylor didn't score for maybe 2.5 minutes, but both of these teams absolutely went off. Baylor 46 points, West Virginia 50 points in the second half.
Yeah, this was a very fast-paced game throughout. like we said, there were tons of scoring. I mean, we broke down the final, 3 minutes there. I don't know how many points were officially scored, but it felt like close to 25. So, tons of points, like you said, Higgins. And in overtime, this was a contest early in overtime. Maceo Teague would hit a three for Baylor to tie up the game with about a minute 50 left in overtime. But unfortunately, this is where the wheels started to come off for West Virginia. They just didn't have enough juice to hang with Baylor. Taz Sherman would actually give them a 1 point lead with a minute 15 remaining. But Baylor would close it out on a 6-0 run to win 94-89 in overtime. It kind of just felt like they ran out of juice. Baylor's obviously, if not the favorite behind Gonzaga, the second favorite, right in that discussion. So it was a heck of a performance by West Virginia. Really impressive, but just a tough L.
This entire Big 12 this year, watch out for them in the tournament. I swear. I mean, you got Baylor, you got West Virginia, Texas Tech, Oklahoma State. I mean, you got a lot of interesting players that could each potentially make a push, have the players that could potentially get hot at the right moments. It's a very tough conference.
Yeah, no, you make some great points, and they're all going to be battle tested. So that's another thing to like going into March Madness.
Absolutely. Today's podcast is presented by Podgo. Podgo is the easiest way for you to monetize your podcast, providing podcasters with a flat rate for ad space so you always know how much you get when you include an ad from Podgo. Apply today to become a member and immediately be connected with advertisers that fit your audience. That's podgo.co at podgo.co, and be sure to add our podcast in the How Did You Hear About Podgo section of the application. Now, Brett, on to the NHL, and we have a lot of interesting plays. I think you made a great point in the last episode where you said the NHL was being properly valued in the books by a lot of these sports books. I agree. That's why I really only find myself on one of these games, but it seems like you were a little more confident.
Yeah, I may have jumped the gun. I don't know. We'll find out, I guess, in Monday's recording. But I like this Red Wings Hurricanes line, Higgins. Obviously, the Hurricanes are going to be the 1.5 goal favorites on the puck line here. But at minus 120, that's juice I'm able to eat. So I think this is a result that's very likely. And I don't think, the amount of juice I have to pay at this early time is too much. This is one I could actually see changing by the morning, though, Higgins. So I'm going to make sure I send this in right now.
Okay, part of why this may be like this, though, is the Red Wings against the spread have been one of the better teams this year. The Hurricanes, they're 8-13. Detroit, they are 14-11.
Yeah, you know what? You raise good points, Higgins. But the game's in Carolina. Carolina's, in the thick of it. They're towards the top of the Eastern Conference. And I think every game and all these points really matter for Carolina. So in my mind, I'm rooting for an empty netter. And I can take that in at minus 120.
And Brett, I just looked up something that swings in your favor fantastically. This is going to be the first game that the Canes are going to have fans in the stadium. On March 4th, they're going to welcome fans back in the stadium. And Carolina Hurricanes are known to ruffle some feathers in the NHL for their unorthodox home ice antics that they do, I guess is the best way to word
Yeah, I don't get really why people don't like it. Like they wait till after the game. Like it's not like a big deal, but it's a lot of fun, Higgins. People seem to enjoy it in North Carolina and that hockey team rallies behind it. So you're right. There may be a little added juice there to go win by 2 or 3 goals. Let's go, Hurricanes.
15% capacity. It's
Better than
fans. We are
zero.
heading
Better
in the
than
right
zero.
direction with some fans. Hopefully, everything goes well and we can start to welcome more fans back safely and responsibly. There's a few more picks in the night, though, in the NHL, Brett. I do like that Carolina Hurricanes pick now that I looked up that they're going to be having some fans back in there, but I'm going to stay off of it out of respect to you because I'm not going to break our pillars. But I like the Lightning and the Blackhawks because I found some data, Brett, that home dogs against the spread are winning 66.7% of the time. Literally two of every three times. So the Blackhawks are plus 1.5 at home against the Lightning. They're minus 145. It's one of 4 games where there are home dogs, so there are other opportunities for this. This is the one that I like the best. It's the closest to uh, decent value at minus 145. So why do I like this though besides just the numbers? The Lightning did beat the Blackhawks in both of their earlier matchups, but that was to start the season, and these two teams have not seen each other since. The Blackhawks have gotten a little bit better. This is at Chicago this time. Can they keep up a little bit more? Keep it a little bit closer? I think so. I mean, it's a divisional game, and things are starting to heat up in the NHL, Brett.
Yeah, I couldn't really pick a side, Higgins, but I felt like this one is going to be high scoring. So I'm taking over 5.5, even with the Jews at minus 125. It just feels like this one's going to at least, 6, 7 goals here. Probably a 4-3 game. Although, yeah, 4-3 would work for you, Higgins. So let's root for that.
Hey, the Blackhawks scored 7 goals in their most recent game. That was against the Red Wings. And the Lightning, in both of their earlier matchups against Chicago, scored 5 goals in each of those games.
There we
These
go.
teams both have the offenses if they are getting hot. And Chicago's lines have gotten hot again. They have Kane, they still have Taves, all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the over's in play. I think Chicago could absolutely steal a game here from Tampa. So we got some things to root for in that one. I'm on one last hockey game, Higgins. Crazy enough. Uh, but I'm actually going to back the dreaded Islanders here against my fiance's team. So don't tell her. But the the Islanders are minus 1.5 on the puck line at plus 135. And I think that's good value because Buffalo is in some rough shape this year. Their goalie's out, Ullman's out. So I just like the Islanders in this spot with the where the juice is at with the sports book. So I think it's more of a numbers play than really that I love the Islanders covering because anything can happen with the Sabres offense. They've got some fantastic young players on those front lines, but the Islanders are a really good team, Higgins, as much as I hate to admit it. They're playing great hockey right now.
The Islanders are 4-1 in their past 5 games. The Sabres are 1-4. I think it's a fantastic play right there. I just didn't quite necessarily feel confident enough that they were going to win by multiple goals because of like what you said with the Sabres young line that has talent, but they're still searching for that chemistry. It looks like.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I'm optimistic, Higgins. We'll just say that.
All right. Before we get out of here, Brett, we have to talk about some UFC because on Saturday night there's not one, not two, but 3 belts. Like I said at the top of the show, there's 3 championship belts up for grabs, including Amanda Nunes, who is defending the belt for the 7th time. She has won the belt and then fought 7 times defending the belt. Has not lost in 6.5 years. Is minus 1,300. But the woman that she is fighting is 4 inches taller and has a 3-inch reach on her. That's interesting. I don't know. I don't find the value on Nunes. She is the consensus, though. I think she's going to win.
Yeah, I mean, those are interesting metrics you brought up for Megan Anderson. It'll certainly be a fun fight to watch, Higgins. As I've mentioned on this podcast multiple times, I often find the women's fights more brutal, to be quite honest. Like, they really get after each other. It is something else. So I really enjoy women's UFC fighting. I think it's really entertaining, and this one should be a great one, like you said. And obviously, it's a title fight, so like it's gonna be good.
Yeah, and that means three fights that potentially could go for 5 rounds if someone doesn't tap or get knocked out or a ref stops the fight. But the odds that Amanda Nunes or Megan Anderson end the fight and it doesn't go to the judges' table, minus 550. If you think it's going to go to the judges' table, that's plus 350. That would be an amazing fight to see of a 5 round fight of those two that would go to the judges' table. The other two fights are the bantamweight class. That's Peter Yan, the belt holder, versus Aljamain Sterling, American versus the Russian. Peter Yan is absolutely a brawler. He is a striker, 5'7". The guy he's fighting, though, exact same height, reach exactly the same. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. If it goes on the ground, maybe that leans him. That's why these books are minus 115 for Yan, minus 105 for Sterling right now. I can't really get a read on that one. And I really love the fight that this really card's named after, the Adesanya Blashwitz fight. Israel Adesanya going up to the light heavyweight for the very first time, and he's the favorite.
Good for him. I mean, that seems like an impressive leap to jump weight classes and be the favorite. So, maybe that's a reason to take whatever the other guy's name is at plus 185. I'm going to let you butcher it, not me.
Jan Blashwitz.
Wow, that's impressive. I would have been so far off, so thank God I didn't say it.
Yeah. So, interesting note about this fight between Blashwitz and Adesanya. The last time that each of these men fought was on the very same night. Adesanya's card, when he last defended his middleweight belt, was when Blashwitz won the heavyweight belt against Reyes. So, can Blashwitz defend the belt? I don't really think so. I mean, Adesanya is an absolute monster. He is 20-0, 15-0 knockouts. He can just read his opponents in that first round better than I've seen of most fighters. I'm not too intimidated by him jumping up his weight class because he is 6'4". So he was fighting down at middleweight, I think. He's bulking up to where his body probably naturally would like to fight at a little bit better, which is light heavyweight. A 6'4" guy at 205, a little bit easier to deal with, a little bit easier to make that weight, I would say. And him coming up, that means more power, that means more precision. That's terrifying to me. That's terrifying. Minus 250, that's not enough juice to scare me away from it. That is terrifying. Adesanya's going to win that fight, absolutely.
All right, fair enough, Higgins. Well, do you like that enough to make it your Levy Lock pick of the pod? We'll have to find out.
We will have to find out right now. It is absolutely my pick of the pod. It is
Oh,
absolutely
there
my
we
pick of the pod.
go. What a tease by me. That was perfect.
It's almost like it was written down somewhere.
Almost.
How about your Levy Lock? What you going with?
I'm gonna head to back to altitude at Colorado, minus 11. Yeah, Higgins, it's senior night. They're gonna go out with a bang, or at least that's the narrative I'm writing in my head. So, Colorado minus 11 at home versus Arizona State. That is my Levy lock.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Like we said, there was only one NBA line out of 9 games that are going to be played on Monday. So we may have some picks for the NBA when the lines come out. You might want to follow us on social media for that, at NBB Pod on Twitter, at Next Best Bet on Instagram, and the Next Best Bet Facebook page and YouTube channel. This has been episode 122 of the Next Best Bet. For Brett, I'm Jake. We'll talk to you again on Monday.